here. Thank you for everyone watching. I'm going to start off with a song for y'all. Let's take a nice deep breath in. Hold your breath. Exhale. No, no. Oh no, yeah, nah, yeah, oh no. Oh no, yeah, nah, oh no. Hell no, yeah, oh no. Oh no, hey, oh, na, ye, oh, ne. Oh no, oh no, ana, oh no, oh. Okay, that's enough. That's enough for out here. If we was inside, that would be another story. Thank y'all for watching. This is Brother Dooley. I had to ask permission first from my partner, my love, my goddess, my friend, for this testimony, this sharing, before I felt like I had to feel if it was okay to share with the family. I had to check in with myself. Okay. When something is very sacred, when something is very meaningful, and as the old magicians or the old wise ones would say, you don't share certain things because if you share it, sometimes it loses its magic, its potency. Okay? There's wisdom behind that statement. And then there comes from a place of knowing that we live in abundance. We live in abundance. We are part of abundance. We are abundant. So there's always enough room for sharing. Sharing comes from a place of the heart. And if we have something meaningful to share that can add on for the next person, then by all means. Before I made this video, before I got on live here, I sat with the Ferdinand snake venom. I did a self-treatment for myself. And I've been going up in dosage and also sitting with certain medicines, ethogenic medicines, with the snake venom to have it go even in a more deeper level for myself. Snake venom can be very subtle. Now, people who've never heard of snake venom and how it can be used on a medicinal healing way, then just know that humanity itself, been using different things for our healing from nature for millions, billions, trillions of years. My teacher told me to read the book, The Serpent Grail, which talks about the history of snake venom throughout the world and how it's been applied not only for our health in dealing with illness, disease, and different things of that nature, but also how it progresses on a spiritual level or a level of evolution. You know, my good friend and teacher, Baba Kalindi, who's an ancestor now, used to say to the family that we are much more than human. And all the mystics, all the wise men and women and beings out there who are connected have been saying the same thing for eons. We are much more than the physical vessel that holds this consciousness. So, like I said in a live that I did on Facebook, that when you have all the popular media movies out, such as Captain America, you know, such as things like Venom, The Last Dance, that last joint, such as even Craven, you know, something I watched recently along the lines of the Marvel Universe. They're all saying the same thing within these movies. There's a upgrade of DNA. There's an upgrade of consciousness. There's an upgrade where each man and woman that experience these upgrades are going beyond their physical limitations, their mental limitations, you know? And it's pointing to something that our ancestors been doing for such a long time. I sat with 23 dots of Ferdinand's today, and I sat with the Bufo with it. Bufo's toad medicine, all right? And I swear to the ancestors, my guides, everyone, my back, my spine has not felt this great in such a long time. First of all, I've been skipping down the street lately. You know what I mean? Real talk, you know? And the Taoists would tell you, you know, there's a thing about aging. How are we going to age? Are we going to age like fine wine? Or are we going to be able to age in a way where we're becoming broken down after so many years? It's fascinating because I came across this podcast, and this person, it was this Indian dude who was talking about architecture, ancient architecture. And they was all talking about the possibility, at least from his audience, from who he was, the type of people he was talking to, that in the past we had advanced technology. So it was going into this whole thing. And this man, being from India, went into the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, all these different things, all these sources that he was given on the podcast. And what I find so interesting is that he mentioned about the giants. He mentioned about a lot of different things. Hold on one second. Okay, I'm back. All I'm saying is this, is that within my experience, even sitting with the Ferdinands today and going deeper, first of all, it's very subtle, okay? And for those who don't know and think it's a dangerous thing, no, we're talking about the ratio of being able to go into a dilution process to make it safe for a human being, all right? First and foremost. And these are things that have been passed on through traditions, you know, through time after time, trial and error, all kinds of things, right? But when we come to a place of coming down to getting it to the science and saying, okay, this is the ratio of being able to dilute the snake venom so it could be safe for an individual, and also coming to a place where it comes to working on a cellular level, it's amazing. It's very subtle, like I said, it's not prominent, where it's gonna hit you over the head like other indigenous medicines. But when you sit with other medicines, such as, in my case, like the Bufo, it makes the effects of the medicine louder. And it allows you to be able to know in real time where the medicine is working, how it's working with you, what organ, so on and so forth. When I talk about the level of release in my spine, and why is this important? Why I keep on saying this, especially about the spine, when we're talking about the mystic traditions, we already know about Kundalini. We already know about intellectual things, and to really solidify it in an experience. So when I'm talking about letting go of all the tension, all the little different pains and aches in this spine, The way my body was twisting, the way it was even moving like my head like a snake at one point was amazing. And I feel great, you know? So I wanted to share with y'all one thing about my experience recently. It's been interesting that I've never had this experience before, first and foremost. And the reason why I even asked my girlfriend if it was okay for me to share this, because it's intimate moments, you know? And certain things are just meant for couples or those who are engaging in that way, right? But I wanted to get her permission and be able to say, hey, is it, because it was such a profound experience to be able to share with the family. What I've been realizing and seeing lately is that in regard to the subject of what we want to call Tantra, or even sacred awakening through the art of lovemaking, through the art of engaging with one's partner, one's spouse, one's loved one, is something else. You know, it's deep. It's much deeper than what we think. And for some of the practitioners, some of the good friends of mine who I would say would explore what we would call Tantra, when I think of these good friends, these powerful sisters, they would always remind me and bring to people's attention that when we think about Tantra, it's nothing, about 80% of it has nothing to do with physical sex. And so on point with that statement, with that whole way of thinking and that whole way of awareness is very much so. And it even goes into this experience I'm going to share with you. But it comes to a level of maturity. You know, when we look at certain levels of approaching consciousness, some people might say you might have a more inner experience where we can even look at certain ascetics or certain monks and nuns that withdraw from society, withdraw from the world, or withdraw from the matrix, right? And go within to find their liberation. Then you have other schools of thought where they say we're not going to withdraw within, we're going to actually understand that the outer and the inner is one and the same. As some people would say, samsara and nirvana are one and the same. It's a deep statement to go beyond intellect, but to experience is a whole different story. But using the external as a tool for liberation as well has been a way or approach for many mystics over time as well. And these would be fit in the category of what we would call tantrikas, or those who deal with the Tantra. Now, this information, this way of life is ancient. It's ancient as anything, because this is how we come into the world. This is how we're born, through the art of lovemaking, right? This is how we come into these vessels. So you had mystics that would study how we would come into this vessel, study the art of bliss, study the art of being able to know what love is to a whole different, deeper degree. Now, there's a lot of things that could get in the way of this. Irresponsibility, those who aren't mature to deal with such understanding or way of life, trauma, all kinds of things. And most people, I would say, need to stay away from it, to tell you the truth, because of the level of maturity And I'm speaking even from my own experience. There's a difference between coming from a place of being driven by your desires and a difference where you're connected to something authentically called beauty or love. That's the difference. And we would say our carnal self. There was moments where damn well, and still sometimes things like that come up. At least on my journey, the carnal self, you know. But what I've learned is that, and I was talking to my girlfriend about this yesterday, actually. It's like someone drinking salt water and wanting to quench their thirst. And they're drinking the salt water and they keep on drinking and drinking and never. That's the level of desire. And what I've been learning, and especially through the medicine recently, I'm gonna let this ambulance go by, I'm gonna let that ride by. What I realized is that this thing that we call desire, a lot of it, we probably heard of this before, is coming from a place of a feeling of emptiness, a feeling of hurt, a feeling of incompleteness. I'll never forget, at one point in my life, I had an addiction to watching pornography, right? And I remember in that stage in my life, I'll never forget, I had a good friend of mine who had a stroke, and I was going to go visit him to do some healing work on him. And I remember I microdosed with this mushroom, and just the healing work with him was a whole different story within itself. It was deep. But me riding my bike after I did the healing with him and coming back to my apartment, there was a moment when I was riding my bike and Spirit said, or my higher self at that moment said, put the bike down and just put it down for a second. I go along with what I'm hearing telepathically. I stop riding my bike, I put my bike down. Next thing I know, my hands start making these mudras or these type of movements with my fingers. And next thing I see my fingers do this, snip, snip. And I could feel like this weight leave my being. I felt like two spirits that were attached to me that were, the only way I can explain is like that these two spirits were feeding off the desire of the porn addiction. And I remember when I said zip, zip, I remember that I never had a feeling of wanting to watch or engage in that at all. You know, and it happened like just like that overnight. There had to come to a place of my own personal responsibility of one, loving myself. Because when I was in loving myself, I was making the wrong decisions. Even sleeping with certain women that I knew that I needed not to be sleeping with. But that comes to a place of one, learning, two, being honest with myself. Because when we want to talk about Tantra, when we want to talk about using the level of bliss, it's about really, really, really being responsible, honest with yourself, doing the shadow work with yourself, and vulnerability. The best lovemaking I ever had in my life has been when I'm able to open my heart, when I'm able to be vulnerable with a woman who I'm in love with. When I was in those type of situations, the current even situation, the love that has come into my life, I'm able to learn so much about myself and her, vice versa, through connection, you know? So this can't be something achieved, at least in my opinion, through fucking or through some casual experience. And the reason why I say that, because there's levels to this. Even this book here, by Jewel and the Lotus, great book. And I recommend this book highly to people who are interested in the subject of Tantra or exploring your partner, your loved one, and raising up that consciousness through lovemaking, you know? I say it's a great book. Now, it's through Sunyata Saraswati. And for those who really know, it was really majority of the information in this book was really written by his ex-wife at that time. For those who know. Sunyata is a very interesting figure. I've met a couple of people that studied with him as his students. And each of these people have told me amazing things about Sunyata. You know, very interesting man, to say the least. He has a martial art background. He has a military background. At one point, you know, I can't disclose and say a lot of things about that because there's certain things are for initiates, you know, but a very, 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 very interesting man. And I remember I seen him, his spirit came to me once, and I was in Detroit at the time, and I remember Firewater was there, Acacia was there, and Acacia's old partner, Mike, that was there. And there was someone else that was there. It was a while ago. But I remember I spoke to Firewater and I was like, you know, we were microdosing with the mushroom. And I remember I was like, yo, your teacher's right there, bro. He's up there. He was standing on this rock and he was watching me. And as I got older, and as, you know, it hasn't always been like that, family. It hasn't always been like that, y'all, where, you know, we all have our different, what we would call cities or siddhas, you know, our different psychic abilities. You know, some people say certain gifts. Some people have clairvoyance. Some people could see certain things beyond the normal sight. Some people could hear certain things beyond normal hearing, you know. Some people could smell certain things that most people can't smell. You know, just think about it, right, for a second. We don't even have to go so deep. Think about a dog's hearing, you know. There's certain things that a dog, it's certain pitches or tones that a dog can hear that most humans can't pick up on, you know. There's certain things that come down to seeing certain things, even cats, certain things. They'll see certain wavelengths or even frequencies that most humans can't see. You know, it's big, very known for cats to be able to see spirits or deceased loved ones or people roaming around who were deceased. And sometimes you'll see the cat look up and be like, you know, you're saying to yourself, what is that cat looking at? You know? Very common, you know, so I didn't always have the sight. I always felt things. Don't get me wrong. I was one of those people, and naturally, because I'm a Pisces, I was always one of them people that could feel things. But seeing wasn't always there, you know? But it started to develop gradually over time of doing the work, of doing my inner work, doing the Qigong, of moving the energy, cultivating the energy, right? It started to develop over time. And I think that's an important part for people to know, Because there's some people on the path that sometimes might say, well, what's wrong with me? Why can't I see the spirit world or see the spirits or hear this or that? Or somebody might say, well, or even might be envious and say why he has it or she has it and I don't, right? Everyone has these particular abilities. Some people are born with them, don't get me wrong, because certain things are in the blood. Certain things are passed down through genetically, ancestrally, right? And then there are certain things that people can develop through hard work, So this is interesting, and so when I seen Sunyata Saraswati, I was telling Firewater, and we was building about him, and also building about, I will never forgot when, a lot of people could say that Sunyata was like a crazy wisdom. And again, there was a lot of stories behind that elder, But one thing that I find interesting, and I think one of the only lingering videos of him on YouTube, you could see him in this interview saying he's made comparisons of the different types of tantras or schools of thought on the world. So he talks about, in the interview, Kemetic Tantra. He talks about the Indian Tantra. He talks about the Taoist Chinese Tantra. So he's talking about these living traditions, because when we look at the history, within history, we see that when we come into the level of more organized, later, more organized religions, 3 major religions, we're looking at a level of patriarch, which stamped out a lot of these goddess tantric type of movements, right? So a lot of the old information was destroyed, but a lot of the places, like especially like India, Tibet, hold on one second. When we look at India, Tibet, Kemet, different places like that, they still have able to keep those traditions alive. But if you've seen what Sunyata said, he said in his later years, he stopped teaching just single people. If you weren't in a committed relationship, or if you weren't in a committed ancient ways, he was talking about how he would only pass this information on to married couples, and I know now what he is saying. I feel that when a person really starts to engage and go deep within this tantric work, there's definitely soul ties. There's definitely a level where there's a connection, and that connection has to be honored. It can't just be thrown around, So having casual encounters and things, I think people can have experiences, don't get me wrong, but to a deeper degree, I feel when you're in a committed relationship, you could go as deep as the ocean and beyond, So the beautiful thing is that when you find someone that you love, that you trust, that you're committed to, that you both have said that we have made this commitment towards each other, then there's that space for you to explore. And exploring with the medicines, oh my God. This is whole new, this is very transformational work. This very transformational exchange, When we talk about responsibility, when we're looking at, first of all, the sexual trauma, first of all, the levels of rape in this country, in the US and abroad. First of all, the level of not even knowing what lovemaking is. There's a lot to unpack there, There's a lot to unpack. And so when you find someone that you're committed with, and you could say, wow, we have a place that I could be vulnerable with, my friend here, my lover. I can be able to be expressive in the bedroom with my partner, with my loved one. All kinds of magic can happen, right? I'll tell you one thing. I'll start, before I go into the womb healing, I'll just start off with the foot. Now, my lady, she's more flat foot. All right. So over the years, she used to have a lot of issues with her feet, just because of how her foot is, right? One night, we're in the bed, and something tells me just to start nibbling on her feet, right? And this is grown folk talk. If you get embarrassed, if you feel like you're blushing, or if you feel if there's a feeling of even judgment that comes up inside your brain of somewhere of saying, well, we shouldn't be talking about this or whatever, I don't know, you might have to look at this, because we culturally we look at sensuality, sexuality as something dirty, the sins of the flesh. You're being horny, all these other things, and it hasn't opened up the door for us to explore each other again in a healthy way, a fun way, a healing way, in an enjoyable way. So something tells me to start nibbling on her feet. So of course she start laughing, and she's like, "Oh, this is ticklish, ha 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 ha." Then I'm like, chill out. I'm like, try to keep your composure. I know this is a little ticklish for you, but something is coming through. And I remembered what one of my old Qigong teachers told me. His name was Master Heat. He was one of my first Tai Chi Qigong teachers. And I'm like 16, 17 years old at the time. And I remember, I'll never forget, in the class, he said, the greatest medicine on this planet is inside you. He said, it's your saliva. I'll never forget that when he said that. He said, it's not any particular herb. It's not any particular plant. It's not any particular this, that, and the third. It's your saliva. Then he further went with stating that when you infuse your chi, when you infuse your life force energy into that saliva, it becomes like a healing ointment. It becomes like a healing salve. It becomes like a healing elixir. All right. Back in the day, what we used to do, because the Taoist school of thought, they use the number 9. They're big on the number 9. So you might see exercises where you might do it 9 times, 18 times, 27 times, 36 times, right? So we would go with our tongue 9 times clockwise, 9 times counterclockwise, going over our teeth and our gum, the front of our gums and teeth. Then we would do the same thing inside, under your teeth. So imagine first on the outside, right? And then the inside, right? So you do a circle in your inside teeth. And after you do that, and you build up the saliva in your mouth, you consciously drink your saliva in 3 parts. The one little swallow, another little more, and then the third last bit. And that would be an exercise where you're using your saliva to do internal alchemy, internal healing for yourself. So I remember that exercise when my teacher told us about that. So in that moment, it was clicking in my head, let me use the saliva for this healing for her foot. So as I'm doing that with the saliva, and goes into totem animals, um, this goes into the whole Native American thing where you'll see a lot of people talk about certain animals that might come into your vicinity or come into the spirit world as messengers, protectors, different things, right? So there was a beaver that came through and then a squirrel. And I know it might sound a little crazy, but it was like the way the beaver energy was coming through, it was the way it was nibbling at my love's foot. It was helping with any type of a callus or anything that was there, but also it was like shifting the bones, the bone structure. And I could literally feel this whole shift that happened with her foot. And just a little side note, the next day her foot was amazing. And when she looked up beaver energy and squirrel energy, was everything that was going on with her own life at that time, and the medicine, certain things that she was dealing with too. But because I've been going on for a while, I'm going to go into the womb activation and how profound and powerful it was. So again, this is for grown folk conversation. This is grown folk conversation. And again, what we're talking about, we're talking about something that is beautiful, something that is natural. Not putting the spin on it that we're talking about something that's dirty or anything that's being nasty or harm, all these other things are associated with the way they want to spend sexuality in this country. When we could have adult conversation and come to a place of sharing and saying, wow, this is possible with our bodies, because we're so disconnected. In this society, we're so disconnected from even our own bodies. We don't even know that we're capable of feeling such bliss or having certain connections on an interdimensional level or any of those things. So long story short, my lady was going through some things. She was having a stressful moment. Something came up and I wanted to comfort her, So at first we was just holding each other and holding space, for her to feel better, right? There was this place where I wanted to make love to her, but there was this, my body was like, nah, it's not time to do some love making. I approach this differently here. All right. So I start kissing her and stuff, and then I go down on her, right? Something tells me to smoke from my Bufo pen. So I go into and sit with the toad, and the toad medicine deals with 5-MeO-DMT. It's a very strong psychoactive compound, which allows a person to have more insight to their higher self, right? So I sit down, and at first it's this level of when I'm smoking it, I'm feeling the meditation, right? So the way I was kissing my lady's yoni, it came from a place of like meditation and sending waves out of, it was like a meditative experience, right? Then I started smoking more and getting deeper. And that's why I was like, wow, this might be something that other couples might want to explore, where you might want to sit with your lady and sit with the Bufo or a particular ethogenic medicine and see what happens. You know what I mean? In the case of Bufo, which is such a strong medicine, you have to first sit with it for so many times, right? Or be able to learn how to be able to function if you want. It's like when Baba Kalindi said, right? There's a certain level of grams where it becomes aphrodisiac. But then it comes to a place where you get deeper with the mushroom where you're really not in that mode of being able to even do any love making. You're, in such a different state of mind right now. So it kind of deals with a person's, what shall I say, how potent, what's their level of potency, right? So, and you might have to play around with that. So that might have to come down to the level of someone microdosing at first or what have you. But as I started going deeper with the Bufo, I noticed that it was like a lot of times when I sometimes go into trance or when I'm doing a healing, sometimes it becomes like a channel at that moment. It's like, okay, I'm channeling. And sometimes in those moments, a person might have their ancestor come through me, or I might be dealing with their spirit team or what have you. And time in and time again, it's a very interesting process because at that moment, there's levels of information that come through. It might be a certain song that comes through and is channeled, and the particular frequency is for certain things that person need. Might be guided to a particular place on the body for hands-on healing, so on and so forth. That's the same idea of what was happening along the time of me with my loved one, where I felt like I was being guided at that moment. And, I was at her clit, and with my tongue, the way I was guided, it was like, don't even move your tongue, just keep your tongue on her clit. And as I'm seeing this surge of energy coming through, I was guided to say, okay, now, slowly enter with your finger. Now, this finger became a wand within itself. And the level of energy that started to come through, which was very intense at that moment. In the beginning, literally, it was like these goddesses that were coming through. And as they were coming through, they were like doing an upgrade for her yoni or her vagina at that time, right? So it was like, at first, various different goddesses throughout different traditions that were coming through. Some of them that I could remember, like Kali, definitely Tara. It was, Oya. It was a second. It was so many different ones from different traditions. Now we could look at the whole subject of what we consider a goddess or a god, or we could look at that from even the level of different interdimensional beings, different levels of intelligence, you name it. But at that moment, as those energies were coming through, man, oh man, my love, she had to even get up and was like, what is going on? We had to laugh about it afterwards because she's like, wow, I thought I was going crazy at first because I like this type of energy. She was like, it wasn't like an orgasm, but she was like, definitely from word to word, her saying an upgrade, right? Which was what was going on. And by the way, my love was not partaking in the Bufo. It was me just going through the channel with the energy and her being able to just sit back and receive. What was so interesting at that point, as that energy was going through, I was starting to see, like, if you can imagine, like a time travel. So seeing her from her age as a little girl coming all the way up to a grown adult at her current age, and her relationship with her yoni, with her vagina, during all those different stages in her life, meaning certain men that she encountered that maybe didn't need to be a part of her, but still was an experience and a teaching within herself. And man, it was amazing. And after all that work and different thing was going on with her, it was like I was seeing people woman in her family. So all of a sudden, I seen her aunt that came, her mother that came through, her sister that came through. I started seeing her daughter. I started seeing my nieces. I started seeing my daughter. You know what I mean? All these women, and it was like the only way I could explain. Because after all this was done and we're talking to each other, the only way I could explain it was like that 100 monkeys, what is it called, the 100 monkey theory or what have you, where they seen that one particular group, it was a group of monkeys from on this island, on one side of the island, found a new way of washing their food or what have you, and on the other side these other group of monkeys simultaneously learned the same thing at that same time. That's how it felt. In a way, it was like a trickle down effect of the woman in her family bloodline, and also the woman that surrounded both of us in our immediate family, and so on and so forth. So it was this, and then it felt even beyond just our family. It felt like just something that will ripple down effect through the woman species. I cannot put it in words. It was so profound. I've never had this experience with any of my past lovers, women that were in my life, women that I've loved in my life. I've never had this experience before. And it was so powerful. You know what I mean? It was very, very powerful. What was so interesting was that as this was going on, it was so precise. When I say every movement, even the way my finger wanted to vibrate on her cervix, it was crazy. It was like certain things that had to be dissolved, other things that had to be upgraded. And my love was saying that it felt like her whole body was vibrating, felt like it was like an earthquake that was happening at the time. As that was going through towards the end, it was like the masculine principle was coming through now as a channel. So it was like these gods that were coming through, some of them Krishna, Shiva, certain other ones that were coming through. And at that moment, it was like a level of protection for her womb. Anything that needed to be taken out of her that doesn't need to be there, dissected or whatever, that was the energy that was coming through. And that was very powerful. And it was like, and I don't think I mean, even the next day, my love noticed certain things that were different, that, because, some people could say this is just a subjective experience, right? And that's the whole argument for a lot of people when they look at so-called psychedelics, or when we want to look at the whole subject of plant medicine or ethogenic medicines. There's going to be that crowd of people that say, well, you were just hallucinating. This was all in your imagination. You were taking drugs, right? This is their whole theory. First of all, there's a difference between what we call drugs and what we call teaching plants or medicines that have been passed down through generations through indigenous people. This is a part of our heritage. This is a part of our culture. Okay, there's a difference. All right. When we look at drugs, we look at a level of dependency, right? We look at something that's that we've seen that ruined our communities, that have torn up our families, right? When we look at the whole thing of psychedelics, or when we look at ethogenic medicines, we're looking at insights, we're looking at healing, we're looking at people actually putting down what we call real drugs and things of that nature, right? That's a difference. And second of all, when we look at objective experience compared to a subjective experience, then that's why I think it was so important for my love to be able to not be on the medicine. She didn't take any Bufo, yet she was able to experience this phenomena that was happening when she was quote unquote in her so-called normal mind, right? Now, it would be an argument if some people out there, listeners, would say, well, they were both smoking Bufo or toad or doing psychedelics. So, of course, it was just a subjective experience that they were having. No, she was sitting down, receiving, while I partaked in this medicine and was able to have this channel come through me. Okay? And in her whole body, mind, and spirit was reacting to the experience. Okay? And again, going beyond a so-called subjective experience, she was able to see how the ripple effect started to manifest in her physical life. The next day, she seen how she felt was different. How people interacted with her differently at her workplace, how her mother is starting to be different in certain ways. So when we look at the work, when we do this type of work, it's like this one book I'm almost done reading right now. It's about Yogananda, a practitioner that deals with yoga, with Kriya Yoga. Yogananda wrote the book, The Autobiography of a Yogi, which is a really good book if you haven't ever read that book before. But I was reading this book last night, and Yogananda was talking about how when a person starts to do their spiritual work, how it has a trickle-down effect, how it affects, especially when a person comes into a place of self-realization or union with the all consciousness, how that has a effect 7 generations in your family into the future and 7 generations in the past. So it only makes sense when you do this type of work, how you will see this trickle down effect happen directly right in your life. The very next day, my love was noticing this. So my thing is this, is that, I mean, for instance, when you start to build this bond between two people that really care for each other, and I think this is the difference, not to say that I know anything like that, but I'm learning some things over the years, and I'm learning through a lot of my mistakes and, well, I wouldn't call it mistakes, but, lessons, different things I've learned through life. Life is a great teacher. And when we look at relationships, and what I've seen that when we look at relationships and when you take it from a place of first friendship, this is my best friend. And when I say that me and my love here are cultivating a friendship, first and foremost, it's such a beautiful thing. And I feel so grateful. I am totally grateful and have gratitude that we were able to attract each other, and how we both are able to check in with each other and be able to help work through all kinds of things. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing when you can find that person in your life that you could be vulnerable with, that you could be able to grow with, that you could be able to have fun with, and that's no difference even in the bedroom. When people look at the divorce rates, when we look at people that come to a place of cheating on each other and not being honest with each other of the needs that they need, it's when we look at the bedroom, it's so mechanical. There's no expression, there's no excitement, it's when you look at it, especially if you look at some of these married couples, it's like they're going through the regular, what's they call it, the regular, they lost their fire, basically, right? It's like, okay, we're gonna just go through the motions of fucking again, excuse my language. But now it just becomes some mechanical thing where you're just trying to release and get off. When we start to look and explore the levels of sensuality, of the playing in the bedroom, it's a beautiful thing when you can explore that with someone that you care about. Okay? That's the magic. Some people want to say, well, you got to do this particular technique and that and this and that and other. The foundation is having a love for each other. And when you have that, oh yeah, now the possibilities have opened for all kinds of magic to happen. Okay? So when I'll give y'all an example. My lady, her back was hurting the other day. We at the bus stop, about to go get something to eat, chilling. And I do some twisting with my spine and it affects her. And next thing you know, the pain in her back is gone. It cracked. Oh, she in the other room listening. In the bathroom listening. It cracked. And it released the tension. Now, we could go down a list of different things that has been mind-blowing because we've been building our bond together more and more. It's like, I don't know if y'all ever heard of, like, when you see a couple that's been together for so long, they start to have their same mannerisms. They start to actually finish each other's sentences and all that other stuff because there's this connection that they build with each other. They're soul tied to each other and all that, So it's profound. It's a really, really deep thing. And where people come into a place of being sexually dissatisfied is because they lose the magic. They lose the creativity. They lose their imagination. You know what I mean? And that's where even the psychedelics even comes in, because the psychedelics in a lot of ways keeps the level of the curiosity open, the level of seeing things through a new pair of eyes, right? It's coming from a place of like, wow, sensitivity, of being more in tune with your partner's body. So there comes to a place of you being more in tune to knowing how his or her body works, the things that they like, you know what I mean? All kinds of stuff, but this upgrade with this yoni activation with my love, not to say that we want to share our personal business with the world, but I feel there's a gift in sharing something that it's inspirational, that might inspire other couples or other people out there that might say, hey, babe, let's try that tonight. Like let's puff on a little DMT or Bufo or Shunga and let me go down on you and just be open and see what happens. You know what I mean? It's deep, man, because when we look at, and I forgot about this too, even when it was coming through at one point of seeing certain things that were coming up, even certain family members, women that were in my love's family, it started also showing the abuse, even along the lines of the African continent, of the rape, all these things. I was being shown all these things. And it was interesting because when we look at trauma, when we look at certain even phobias, right? We think that, I'm scared of this, or I might have this triggering effect for some reason, and you might not even know why. But the body remembers. The blood remembers. Trauma that's even passed in maybe my love's mother's experience or whatever remembers, and this release is powerful. It's powerful. It's powerful, So the more we release, and this is what I've been seeing, and this is what, if anything, that I've been learning lately. The more we release, whatever unconscious trauma that we have on an individual level, or even a collective level, or even partnership, the more we're able to walk through this life, through this dimension with power, with grace, with a level of really making change. And of course, there's going to be all kinds of obstacles. Of course, there's going to be all kinds of tests and different things. That's life. But how are we responding to it? I tell people all the time, I be fucking up all the time. But the thing is that I'm going to learn from it. I'm not a hypocrite. I'm not going to say, oh, Dooley knows all this and that. Nah, I'm just like any other. Listen, I come from Roxbury. You know what I mean? And I know a lot of people, whoa, this is Roxbury. You ain't from Boston. That's the hood. Well, a lot of things change now. It's gentrification. But, still, I've gone through a lot and I've seen a lot in my life. And it's just to let people know, man, I ain't no different than anybody else. But I have been doing my work. We all have to do our homework. Some people might have a little more strengths in other areas than others. And that's okay too. But yeah, y'all, man, for y'all committed, for your loved one there, man, you know what I mean? Smoke a little Bufo and go down on your girl's yoni, man, on that and get the licking, and dag on it, you know what I mean? There might be a point where you might stop licking. You might be a point where your tongue becomes a energetic cosmic beacon for it. You know what I mean? And at that point, you like, okay, I'm gonna go along with what Spirit showed me right now. I don't even have to lick no more. But yeah, it was deep. It was deep, and there's been a lot of different other things that have been happening. But some of these things is just for our personal, our own personal experiences, and not for everyone to know. But for the things that I feel that I can share with the family, thank you for allowing me to share. Thank you for my love, giving me permission to be able to share with y'all tonight. And yeah, keep it going, man. Keep on exploring, man. Keep on doing what you're doing. Somebody's making comment from Australia. Oh, thank you, man. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Somebody says Beantown Shaman. Okay, peace. Someone says laugh out loud. Okay. Yeah, some comments here. Peace, Dooley. Somebody says, what is snake medicine? Okay. Well, I'll briefly say that I was saying I started off. That's why I was trying to gather my thoughts. Forgive me if I started off a little slow because I was still coming down from the snake venom. I've been going in deeper with the snake venom lately. Usually most of the way I was taught is that normally we start off with 6 dots of medicine, and it's brought on the skin. So it's the way it's administered is that it's put on the skin topically, right? So you're gonna burn the first layer of the skin in what we call gates of medicine. I'll show y'all my arm here so y'all could see. Okay. And you see here. Okay. So these are all recent snake venom treatments that I did on myself here, and again, these particular gates or burn marks, they're not permanent. They're not going to be a permanent scar. That's why we use the first layer of the skin. And then depending on the skin type, depending on the person, the healing of the skin is different for everybody. So it might fade away for a couple of maybe 2 months. It might be longer for another person, but the actual burn marks don't stay on your skin forever. Uh, if you're a person that more private person that doesn't want to be everyone in your business, or you might work at a corporate job or something like that, you might want to think about making your gates or your burn marks in a more private area. More area that most people can't really see so much. So sometimes you could put it on, maybe your ankle area, or area that might be covered with your clothing or what have you. Because, sometimes, people don't want people in their business, and then people are just funny. They might see the burn mark on you, and then all kinds of questions coming to you. What are you doing? Are you taking drugs? Are you shooting up? What are you doing here? So, and it's no one's fault. That's why we're here to educate each other, right? And also to let people know that these are ancient traditions. So my teacher's teacher was from Brazil. I got my training in Mexico, in Oaxaca. I was in Mexico, where I got my training from. And my teacher's teacher, their lineage and tradition comes from Brazil. But again, my teacher's first book he told me to read about the subject was The Serpent Grail. Which is a book right here. Serpent Grail by, let me turn it around so you can see. Serpent Grail by Philip Gardiner. All right. This is a good book to start off on the research of snake venom, right? And it kind of, the first part of the book just tells you the history. It tells you how snake venom traveled around the world, from India to Asia to Europe to Africa, and how it's been used, different ways that it's been administered and also used. Towards the end of the book, you start to go into the more scientific aspect of snake venom, what it's made of, the enzymes, the proteins, the peptides. You'll start to see a big explosion that's happening in the pharmaceutical industry, where there's all this talk about peptides. So there's different peptides that actually can help function to heal certain organs, the bones, the brain, you name it, right? The first snake venom I received was the monocle cobra. And the monocle cobra is a neurotoxin, and it helps with the brain, it helps with the lungs, it helps with the heart. It's an excellent snake venom to take if you're dealing with lung problems, So if you're a big smoker, people smoking cigarettes all the time, all that, lung issues, it will definitely heal and help with the lungs. If you're dealing with a person who deals with a lot of anxiety, nervous all the time, your central nervous system is jacked up, if you're an overthinker, you can't seem like you can't turn that inner voice that's going on in your head off, then the monocle cobra, the king cobra, is a great snake venom to have to really slow down your thinking, to make you more in the present moment. I call it the inner Zen master, that particular snake venom. So that, that was the first one I had. And the first thing I noticed when I was in Mexico was that my breathing changed. I was high in the mountains. So the high altitude was really, I was having a hard time breathing, going up, basic hills or going over mountains and stuff. And what I noticed the next day after the snake venom is that I could breathe better. I could go up that same hill without being out of breath and what have you. Next thing I noticed is that when I got back home from Mexico, the mental clarity, my God, it became so quiet in my mind, and it just felt like I was in a constant state of meditation, just felt very quiet, felt very calm. And this could be something that we might want to look at if we talk about people that are very hyperactive. They give all these children all these medications for certain things, like so-called ADHD, autism, all this stuff. The cobra, the Monica cobra, could be one of those snake venoms that could really help out a lot of people that are dealing with those situations, especially the young people. So yeah, that was when I first started seeing that level of mental clarity, of mental peace. And it's not no $1 amount of money or anything that could buy a level of inner peace. When you could feel good inside, man, that's a revolution within itself. To be able to walk through this society with all the craziness that sometimes be going on in this world, and to find and feel at peace within yourself, feel okay, man, that's a beautiful thing. So yeah, that's how I came across the snake venom, and I've been working with it ever since. I've been working with numerous different snake venoms. They all do different things. They all have their own personalities, and some are more prominent or more louder than others. Normally, they are very subtle, compared to other medicines like, combo, for instance, that I've been working with over the years. And I learned about combo while I was in Costa Rica and did some training out there. But, the combo, that's a purgative medicine, which is like, it's a warrior medicine. So comparing like snake venom, the combo, which is also applied on the skin through the burn mark, through the gate. Combo, you're going to be throwing up, you're going to go to the bathroom, your body's going to be feeling hot, going to be feeling cold, getting the shivers, you're going to be feeling nausea, all this other stuff, right? That's totally different with snake venom. Snake venom, on the other hand, snake medicine is very calming in most ways. Again, some snake venoms are more energetic. You might feel very energetic all of a sudden. You might feel, for those who've had energetic healings before, right? You might feel like a surge of energy, or someone like feeling like you're doing Reiki over your body or what have you. You might have these different sensations, but overall it's very, very, very much subtle. That's why I encourage people to pair up the snake venom with other ethogenic medicines, be it microdosing with the mushroom, the Bufo, certain, shunga, different things like that. And when you microdose, you're able to feel the effects of the snake venom much more louder. You're able to, in real time, know which organ is being healed at that moment, where it's going on in the body, different things like that. So before I started this video, I started off with 14 gates of medicine with the Fer-de-Lance snake, that particular snake venom, and I was puffing the Bufo with it, right? The toad medicine. So I was getting all kinds of messages with the Bufo and the snake venom. So they was at that point, my body was talking to me. The snake venom was like, turn your spine this way, turn your back this way. It's going to affect your spine this way. Do this, do that. Oh my God. It was like my back was thanking me. It was saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. I haven't felt that good, like with my spine like this, in such a long time. So the snake venom was definitely working very well with me. And then I started puffing the I have a Bufo vape pen. And I did a video recently talking about that too, and saying how awesome the Bufo vape pen is, because you have more control over how deep you want to go with your experience. You could microdose with it. You could go, lightweight with it, or you could go real deep with it, into galactic. We could, you can talk about ancestral work, all kind of stuff. So you can gauge, you have more control of your gauge of how deep you want to go with it. So I saw with the Bufo vape pen again, and Bufo's telling me, take some more snake venom. So the snake venom already absorbed into the skin and went into my bloodstream, and I'm still feeling the effects, but it's told me to put more on. So after the 14 dots, they told me to do 14 more. So in all, I did 28 in that session. And wow, it was powerful. So, right before I started the video, I was still kind of in that zone. So that's why it kind of had to take me a little while to kind of sometime kind of ground myself in a way to even present to y'all what I wanted to talk to y'all this evening. So if I was kind of starting off slow with it, bear with me. I'm sorry about that. And I hope you got something from it. But I'm gonna get off of this, and thank you again for watching. Somebody says here's another question: How does I think they says how long does the snake venom last in the ceremony? Well, it's very quickly. You're looking at, each person is different, but you're looking at about 15 to 20 minutes for the absorption of the snake venom to go into the skin and go into your bloodstream. But the actual effects of it, depending on the person and what you're dealing with, it depends, sometimes, like, for instance, Black Mamba or King Cobra, sometimes, I'll start to feel it really working on my brain. So, and I might feel all kinds of sensations in my brain for maybe an hour or two, right? Or it might even last the whole day, but it's not prominent. It's not overbearing. It's something that's definitely functional, like a feeling that you feel in the background. So you could still like drive, or do your daily tasks or whatever, or your work or whatever you need to do. It's not going to inhibit you from doing your daily things of whatever you need to do. So again, it's a very subtle medicine. But the effects of it can last for months, depending on, again, what you're dealing with, because each snake venom, has different peptides and has different things that it works on, so again, it could be a neurotoxin, a hemotoxin, what have you. So, it depends on the particular snake venom. Okay. Somebody says Bufo was my first introduction to plant and animal medicine. Yeah, Bufo is beautiful, man. First time I did Bufo, I was in Staten Island. And man, my first experience was amazing. It was amazing. It was like I was seeing for those, I'm an artist as well. I'm a visual artist as well. So one of my favorite artists is Alex Gray, and he has those paintings where, like, if you had X-ray glasses on, you could see someone's anatomy or their chakras or what have you, right? That's how he kind of started off with a lot of his paintings. But that's how it was when I first smoked Bufo. It was like I had X-ray vision and I was able to see in my body, which is very common when you study things like shamanism, right? And, shaman, we already know, is a term for those who live in the, the Siberian type of, area. So it's really one who sees, so the definition. So when you look at any medicine man, any medicine woman, they're basically masters of trance. They're masters of trance. They're masters of being able to put themselves in an altered state of mind, be it through dance, be it through drumming, be it through all kinds of different methods, to be able to have access to different states of consciousness, right? So those who are masters of trance, you would hear a lot about medicine woman, medicine man that could look in a person's body, for instance, and be able to see a disease or a tumor or whatever, because they have the sight, right? So that's how it felt for me with my first Bufo experience. I was able to look inside my body like I had X-ray vision, and then next thing I knew, I was going for all these dimensions simultaneously. Oh, before that, it was these masters that like were all in a row, and some of them I could recognize, some of them I couldn't, you know. And it was like they was like giving me like basically like the thumbs up, like like we welcome you here, you know. Um, and next thing I know, I'm going through all these dimensions simultaneously, and you could hear it. You could hear it, you know. When you look at certain mystic traditions, they talk about the sound current. They talk about the different sounds that you hear when you go through different dimensions. Um, the inherent sound current, right? So I was hearing these different vibrational sounds as I'm going through these different dimensions. And then it became like a midpoint where I went through like a cosmic womb. And at that point, it was like what in yoga, what we call samadhi, or real deep meditation, where it was this level of being able to be one with the collective consciousness. I was still aware of myself, or what we would call my individual identification, or my own personal ego, but that was also immersed within the collective consciousness as well. And it was a profound experience. That was my first experience with Bufo. It was in Staten Island. And Bufo always been a very special medicine ever since that time. I've always had a dear place for it in my heart. But again, those who know about the Bufo, it's taking the medicine from the toad, right? And you're smoking it, right? What's so interesting with the vape pen, you don't have to worry about the flame. So sometimes when you're smoking the Bufo, if you don't have the flame right, you could burn up your medicine too quickly, thus wasting your medicine. Sometimes you might be in a very deep state of consciousness, right? Or even might be in a particular realm or whatever, and you might need to take in more medicine to continue within that state of mind. Going back to the lighter to light it or whatever, that could break you out of that concentration. So the Bufo vape pen is very, I've been telling people, it's like, if we could look at it like the Star Wars, it's like your lightsaber, right? It's like your lightsaber. Those who are doing the work understand what I'm talking about. And it serves so many purposes, so many different functions. From a common code. Like when I was playing with exploring the Bufo vape pen, there was one day where I felt like, just felt like the little sniffles coming over me, and I felt like, seemed like a little cold trying to come in me. Took a little puff of the Bufo vape pen, and next thing I know, my body starts going into alignment, and I could feel the energy rise within me. Cold was right out. Little sniffle, gone in matter of minutes, right? So it boosts up your energetic field, right? It boosts up your energy. And, at the core of this all deals with energy. This all deals with frequency. This all deals with harnessing and cultivating the life force, right? Also, the various functions of the Bufo vape pen, even as common as dealing with, if a person's in a bad mood. I always been one of those people that had issues dealing with depression, because I just been naturally, I feel like I just always been naturally a sensitive person, and I had to learn how to distinguish between my energy and somebody else's energy, or what have you, not taking on people's stuff, basically. But a lot of times I would feel a lot of people's stuff, and did not know how to distinguish that, or how to let it go, or not to carry somebody's stuff, or even something as terrible, seeing something terrible on the news and internalizing that, right? So I had to be more selective, even on different things that I would ingest in my inner world, right? Just because you like watching horror movies or watching crazy stuff, that's cool. I don't watch internet and anything. Certain things I don't want in my subconscious mind. You know what I mean? I'm very selective of what I intake. You know, so but it always wasn't like that. And so there was times where I would struggle in the past a lot with depression, and things like the Bufo pen would again put you in that level of alignment so you could be able to shake off some of these feelings that ain't even yours. So it serves a lot of purposes. And it was so funny, like today I seen this thing where Oprah Winfrey was talking about psychedelics, and I had to laugh to myself. I'm like, dude, this thing is about to go commercial. You know what I mean? If you got Oprah talking about this, it's so funny. At first, they demonize it, right? At first, they arrest you and put people in jail and try to ruin your family and your career, and saying you're nuts for taking these psychedelics or these different things. And now, just because the top universities are doing research, UCLA and this place and Harvard University and all these others doing brain scans and stuff and seeing the benefits of it now, right? And saying, oh, it does deal with post-traumatic stress disorder. Oh, it does deal with depression or can help. Now it's the so-called stamp of approval because it's coming from the academia, right? Because it's coming from the experts, right? But before then, it's like, no, we're going to demonize you. We're going to throw you in jail. We're going to do this and that. Which is ridiculous. But everything comes full circle, right? And we've had indigenous people in the jungles throughout South America, to Africa, to Europe, to different places, India, that have been dealing with psychedelics, that been dealing with ethogenic medicine since time continuum, right? This is nothing new. Even Baba Kalindi and even people like Terence McKenna that, were theorizing, saying that, mushroom spores are microscopic and that they can travel on asteroids. And that a lot of people like Baba Kalindi, Terence McKenna was saying, hey, there's the possibility that mushroom spores traveled on asteroids and came into our Earth's atmosphere, so thus came as extraterrestrials, so there's no time where we can put an introduction to where and how we were introduced to psychedelics, right? We can't say there was one group of people or one particular race of people or whatever who introduced it to the world, right? This is a collective experience, y'all, And what I want people to understand is that to trust in your process more. Like even the subject of Tantra, for instance, using the vehicle of lovemaking as a way of awakening. A lot of these things that me and my lady are doing together, we do intuitively. It's no textbook or any particular guru or anyone that taught me to do this with my lady. It's coming from a place of really tapping into my intuition and listening to the messages that are coming through, And again, that deals with intuition, and that's something that you have to cultivate, because a lot of people deal with the fear, right? So some people say, well, I don't know. How do you know you're listening to the right person or the right being? You might, a lot of religious dogma and all that, you might be talking to the jinn or might be talking to a demon or what have you, disguised as someone trying to help you. Well, that comes along with exercising your intuition. It's a frequency. It's a vibration. And once you start to be more familiar with that, then you can trust that process. You know what I mean? And as I'm trusting the process more, it has not served me wrong at all. You know, and it might look ridiculous at first. Like, for instance, when I'm in the bedroom with my lady and something tells me start nibbling on her feet, and I start seeing internally something that looks like a beaver, and I'm doing like the sound to her feet. To an onlooker, that could look super silly. It could look crazy. You'd be like, "What the fuck are y'all into?" But it worked. And after I was done, her foot was feeling good. The pain and all that other stuff that she was dealing with went away. Now, if my logical mind came in and said, ew, using your saliva and doing this to that, and, you know, then I might have missed the opportunity for that window of insight. I might have lost the opportunity for that healing to come through. You know what I mean? You know, even just the power of just liquids, even when we deal with lovemaking, the sweat, all this stuff. These are things that could be medicine, you know, when you're dealing with true caring for another person, when you're dealing with the vibration of the heart chakra, when you're dealing with a place of, yeah, it becomes different. Then it becomes a level of medicine. It comes to a level of magic, true magic, right? But I'm gonna get going. Somebody says, Oscar says, Miss Kalindi, he was never allowed to talk for long enough during his talks. Oh yeah, you're very much true about that. And that's Oscar made that comment, Oscar Rose. You're very true about that. First time I met Kalindi was at this college at UMass Amherst. And I was, invited to speak at the college about what you call it. My subject was urban shamanism, right? And I remember that was the first time I met Kalindi, Baba Kalindi, and this is almost over a decade ago now, when I first met him. And I remember he congratulated me on my talk, and it meant a lot to me. Because the night before, I put a post on my Facebook page, and I was saying I was going to be at the college speaking. And this one person said, well, you need to check out Baba Kalindi. Actually, it was Hank Risen's son that told me that. And I remember he sent me a couple of interviews that Baba Kalindi was in on Blog Talk Radio. And I remember that whole night I was just listening to all these different talks that Baba Kalindi was saying, and, talking about different things. And I said to myself, I was like, this man is brilliant. I said to myself, he's like the Morpheus, of our time, like Morpheus as a reference to the Matrix movie, and what was so funny is that the next day when I went to the college to speak there, I had no clue that Baba Kalindi was going to be a speaker there as well at the same college. And it blew my mind. So when I seen him there, and I was like, oh, snap, this is the guy I was listening to last night. And so when he heard my talk, and he said how he really enjoyed my talk, it meant a lot to me. I was like, to come from this great elder, I was like, wow, thank you. That really was a big moment in my life. And ever since that time, Kalindi would always invite me to different functions. He would invite me every year, every 2 years, to the Detroit Psychedelic Conference as a speaker. And became a very good friend. And, he wasn't really a man of a lot of words sometimes. I remember I had him do a talk in Boston because that's where I stay. And, he stayed at my apartment at the time, and we really didn't talk so much. But I remember, I had my library, and out of all the books that he would look at was my comic book collection. And, he would get the doctor. He was into reading my Doctor Strange comic books. So I was like, man, this elder is very interesting. I remember saying to myself, that's when I was first getting to know him. And but if I knew a lot of things I knew now, I really wish I had more time to sit down with Baba Kalindi to ask him more questions on different things, because he was brilliant. And I'll never forget at his funeral, his celebration of going home. There was an elder that was telling us. He told me that how he was able to sneak into the Vatican basement, because he had this ability to put this shield on for people not to see him. He would do it. The elders say he would do it all the time on a highway. He would be going way past the speed limit, and he would know how to put a cloak over him, so the state troopers would never see him. And I remember this elder said, anytime I would drive with him and I would try to speed, I would always get pulled over. But I never knew how Kalindi would be able to do that. But that he did that when he was at the Vatican. He was able to cloak himself where he was able to spend the night in the Vatican. All right. And I wish I knew that at the time when he was alive, because boy, oh boy, there would be a lot of questions that I would have asked Baba Kalindi about his experience while he was there. He spent many nights, I was told as well, in the Giza pyramid, and this is before there was a lot of security that you have now over the pyramids in Kemet. But there was a Nubian brother that shared a lot of wisdom for Kalindi during that time. But yeah, Kalindi was a very, 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 very important person on this earth to come during our time, and inspired me to go deeper with the ethogenic experience. And he's a warrior. So it wasn't that a lot of people go to the psychedelics come from a place of like, oh, I'm going for mental health reasons, or I'm going to it to deal with shadow work, or to deal with my trauma. Kalindi went to it because he was an explorer. He was a cosmic explorer. He was a cosmic psychonaut, right? And he was one of those people that wanted to go to the depths of what makes this reality, very interesting man, he was the one that brought a lot of attention to the Yingmenzu crystals, the transdimensional crystals, bringing the awareness to people that there was technology that our ancestors used that were just as, if not more, powerful than your laptops, than these smartphones and all these different things that we interacted with these natural technologies in a whole different way. I'll never forget when he talked about the science of the African mass that you will find throughout all these museums, these art museums, and how these were technologies, right? How the wood itself were made out of acacia wood. And, for those who don't know what acacia is, the acacia is an important plant that, deals with the DMT, dimethyltryptamine. So this was the plant that was mentioned by the Freemasons when we deal with the mythology of King Abif and Hiram Abif and King Solomon and the whole thing of King Solomon's grave being grown with the acacia tree and all that, and even doing my own research of seeing that the 33-degree Masons and Master Masons would drink their own version of ayahuasca, which was, combination of Syrian root and the acacia root, So, these were the traditions, You know, you know, it's very, 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 very interesting. But the maths were technologies, he was telling us, and the maths was just like that whole thing he was saying with Tony Stark's from the Marvel universe, and him having Iron Man would put his mask on, and he'll be able to have all these information and gadgets and different things going. Kalindi was saying that this is what we knew as well, but we used to know how to do it with natural things such as the wood, the crystals, and all these things. So yeah. And also, it's interesting when the brother said he was never allowed to talk enough during the talks. It's very true, because for many years, Kalindi was the only person of color at these conferences, and he would always talk about how the academia would go in and do the research, but they would not take the medicines. They would not take the high technology, the natural technology that he would say. So he said it would these people, this academia would have much more to offer with their research if they actually sat down with the medicine. All right. But he would always usually for many years the only person of color at these conferences, and from his own words, they would always put him on early in the morning, after. And if you know about these conferences, a lot of people that would come to these conferences, they would have the psychedelic parties and stuff, and people would be so tired the next day. They'll put him on the first person to talk in the morning, when knowing that most people wouldn't be there to listen. So it was intentional. It was, he was dealing with a lot of racism, and they weren't ready to hear, and still aren't ready in a lot of ways to hear the voices of a lot of melanated people and their experiences with the psychedelics. Even, and I'll tell you from my own experience, when I was at UMass Amherst, and me and Baba Kalindi were staying at the same cabin area, the same residence where they had us staying at. And right where we was at, we brought in our luggage and stuff. And do you know, when we walked in there was a noose that was hanging over the banister. And I'll never forget, I said to Baba Kalindi, I was like, yo, man, you see that? That's what the fuck is this about? And I'll never forget, Kalindi was so cool about it. It's like, he didn't even really have nothing to say. He's a man of a true martial artist, a true warrior. So that's that type of stuff didn't faze him. And two, also knowing from his experience of dealing with the level of racism within that whole so-called psychedelic community. Now, he opened a lot of doors. And again, you're hearing more about it now than ever. And a lot of people of color now are hearing it more now than ever, and starting to see that is a part of their heritage. Big up to Darren LeBaron, from England over there in Europe, that's doing a lot of the work and teaching people about psychedelics in Africa, and also that whole heritage, and also doing his growing classes and stuff in his mycology. I didn't get a chance to meet Darren yet. But I remember Baba Kalindi wanted me to go with Baba Mudu, and some others to go to England and to go sit with the Stonehenge and stuff. But my money wasn't right that year, that time. And I really wish that I could have gone with Baba Kalindi at that time and even meet Darren at that time. But yeah. So somebody says something here. Didn't I invite you over to come to stay with me in Mexico? Yeah, I did. You come on down. I'll give you some of my local shrooms. You're appreciate. Robin, Mac, Mark, Zach. Okay. Well, thank you. Shoot me your information. You know what I mean? I'm more on Facebook, as Bro Dooley. Bro and Dooley Duli. I'm not into the titles. Some people ask me, am I a shaman or different things? I'm not so much into that stuff. I was never really one for titles and wasn't really one for certain groups, even a lot of my brothers and sisters that went through different stages in their development and might have said, I'm this or I'm that. I just was one of them people that I didn't want to be placed in any box because I feel like knowledge is infinite and you will always constantly learning, so I don't want my pride and ego to be inflated to say, oh, you're this big. Nah, and when these healings come through, I don't take the credit for it either. I've learned that I've become a channel for these energies to come through me to be able to do certain things for people. That's it. And yes, my years of experience with cultivating the energy work, such as Qigong and Tai Chi and Reiki and all those things do count. Don't get me wrong. The energy work, even the Kriya Yoga, all that is a foundation. So you could be able to hold the energy. It's like how many watts that you could put, how much energy could go through a certain light bulb. You know what I mean? So you have to raise your energy, your frequency up to go deeper, to hold space for certain powerful energies to go through you, if that makes sense. Yeah. So, that's the whole purpose of doing the energy work. And like even the other night, I was sitting with the Bufo vape pen and, speaking of Baba Kalindi, I haven't felt his presence in a while. And he came into the room and it became like a dojo, like a spirit. In the spirit world, it was like a dojo. So I was in class and the only way I could explain it is like still being aware of where you're at the same time. So me still being aware of me being in this apartment here and in the bedroom, but still being aware of his presence and seeing in my mind's eye him doing slow punches to me and saying, okay, now Dooley, you're going to move your arm like this to block it. And it was like a whole class. And there was moments where he's like, Dooley, pay attention. Because, that's just my personality. Sometimes I'm like a big kid in certain ways. So I still embrace my inner child in a lot of ways. And but it was funny. It was like, okay, yep, I'm gonna concentrate. And there was two other individuals that showed up that was part of the class too. So it's amazing. It's so amazing and liberating to know that we can have access to these different states of consciousness. It's liberating and exhilarating to know that when we come to loved ones who've passed away, that doesn't mean that we can't have contact with them or access to them. These states of consciousness and these medicines allows us to have a bridge between this physical world and the spirit world. I was telling people on a Facebook Live that I seen, and I'm gonna kind of leave it with this because I've been talking for a little bit. It was a show called Amazing Stories, and it was this one particular episode where it was these two friends who were into track and field, and one of the friends got hit suddenly by this car and was struck dead. And I'll never forget, in the early 2000s, I was studying Tibetan Buddhism from the Vajrayana tradition, the Mahayana and Vajrayana tradition. And one of my teachers at that time that I got initiations from was this Lama named Lama Garchen Rinpoche. Garchen Rinpoche. I haven't seen him in years. And I'll never forget, he didn't speak so much good English at that time, but he had an interpreter that was saying the worst thing a person could experience is a violent, sudden death. All right. Because of the consciousness is severed from the physical vessel so quickly that their consciousness is placed in like a place of limbo, you know? So I'll never forget that when Gotchen Rinpoche said that to me through his interpreter, and that's why the importance of doing ritual for your loved ones who pass away, right? I remember in the show, the woman didn't know she was dead. It wasn't until she went to her own funeral, and this is in the show, where she sees herself in the casket, where she's like, oh my God, she realized that she's passed away. And usually people that are their consciousness or soul, or what have you, spirit or what have you, is taken out of their physical body so quickly, the astral in that sense is so, they say, looks so real as the physical, it's hard to distinguish what is real and what's not, right? Or what is physical and and in that case, what is not so-called physical, right? But she was interacting with the physical world in the show, but no one can see her, right? There was only one person I noticed while I was watching the show that seen her. And I was like, and I was talking to my girl, me and her was watching it, and I was like, you peeped that? She was walking through the barbershop, but no one could see her in the barbershop, because she's dead, right? So one dude sees her and she noticed, she's like, yo, you could see me? You could hear me? He's like, yeah. And she's like, what is this? He's like, yeah, well, I've been dead for so long and, I'm kind of stuck here, and I don't really know how to get out or what have you, right? He said to the girl, he's like, maybe we're here because we have still some unresolved issues or something that we have to do here, right? So, a long story, and it was so crazy because I remember that day, my girlfriend, one of her best friends, it was her birthday, one of her best friends who passed away. And the way I stumbled upon that particular episode was so interesting because I wasn't looking for this show. It was like, I really felt like my girlfriend's deceased friend guided me to see this for me and my girlfriend to see the show, because she was very sad that day too, guys. Like, it brought up a lot of emotions for her, because it was her friend's birthday and her friend been passed away for so long ago, right? But it was one scene on the show where the girl was like, I don't know, God. I don't know if you want me to still inspire my friend to keep going and pursue her dream of being this track star, but I don't know what you have for me. Like, I'm dead and no one could even see me. What's going on? What do you have in store? And the scene was so powerful that me and my girlfriend came to tears. We were like, wow, it was like just in connection to her friend who passed away. It was really, really crazy, So, the beautiful thing with the psychedelics, and even when you go into the mystic traditions and sometimes go into these places of consciousness, even through certain meditative practices or certain esoteric yogas or whatever, is that you can have access to those who have passed away. And what that does is it's beautiful because, okay, who person that you missed, now you have contact. Now, that's just a whole new experience. It's like that level of feeling like you'll never see them again. Now you could still talk to them. Now you could still interact with them, right? But also it gives you a whole different spin on what death is. Because a lot of this thing of what we want to call the one percenters or the cabal or all these things that people look, or the control systems that we look at, a lot of it's, well, not a lot, all of it is run on fear, right? Fear. That's the main ingredient, right? So, and one of the biggest fears is death, you know? So when we have a preview of what's to come when we leave this physical shell, then a lot of that fear is put to the side. You know, your consciousness continues. It's very interesting. Okay, somebody says, somebody has a comment here. So thankful for you talking about Kalindi. When COVID took him, I was more than surprised. At least that's what I read happened. Thanks for the live stream. Yeah, there was complications with the COVID and with the lungs for Kalindi, but a lot of it also had to do with when we look at the metaphysics of the body, right? And I deal with ear acupuncture. I deal with a lot of things in traditional Chinese medicine, especially when we look at Qigong, right? Well, there's the 5 sounds of the organs in Qigong, and each organ has a sound. Each organ, there's a movement for each organ. There's a sound for each organ. There's a certain breathing pattern that goes along with the exercise, right? And each organ in traditional Chinese medicine deals with an emotion. So for instance, the kidneys deal with fear when it's out of balance. The liver deals with anger when out of balance. And we also was talking about combo or frog medicine earlier. And just like, you know, the old psychics would do the tea readings, right? There's the purge reading when you're dealing with the combo or the frog medicine. And when you observe your clients or the person you're working with, their throw up or their purge, and the coloration of the throw up communicates what's going on with the body. The foam, all these different things deal with what's going on in the body. So when we deal with the lungs, we deal with the level of sadness and grief when out of balance. And you have to realize that Kalindi had, you know, more than one wife, and 2 of his significant people in his life, 2 of his wives, both passed away very close to each other. So in my opinion, there was a lot of grief, a lot of sadness that was going on with Kalindi that was affecting his lungs. And because of Kalindi being such a warrior and such a powerful being, he didn't really show it like that to the public, to people like that, which he doesn't have to. You know, some battles are sometimes fought in private, you know? But also we have to understand as a collective family, as a cosmic family, as a brotherhood, as a sisterhood, that we all go through dark nights of the soul. We all go through challenging things in life, and we have to be here to support each other. You know, sometimes shit get crazy. And sometimes we just need a person to lean or put our head on, or someone for our tears to come down. And especially as men, it's okay, you know? Because sometimes when we don't express these things or let these things out, it can do a lot of damage to our physical vessel, you know? So, okay. Sunfire, Sister Sunfire is on here. Listen, peace, my sister. It's good to see you on here. Okay. All right. Well, that's it. That's all the comments I see on here. And again, I didn't expect to be talking this long. I hope it wasn't a waste of your time. And if some of this stuff doesn't make sense, or if it sounds crazy, I mean, hey, you know, I don't know everything. You know, I'm learning just like anybody else, you know. And if it does make sense to you, then, well, I hope it was useful, and let's just keep on exploring and learning about ourselves and learning about the greater reality of things. Um, and also part of this talk was about, lovemaking and exploring your partner, So don't be afraid to be playful in the bedroom. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable in the bedroom. You know, Sitting down with that Bufo and going down on my lady's yoni was a whole experience within itself. I've never experienced that with any woman before. And I mean, I don't think I could unless there was a connection, and me and my lady, we have a really good bond. So we was both open for that to happen. So yeah, it was powerful. Yeah. Someone says, "Will you be at a upcoming convention?" I don't know. I mean, people who want me to speak at events or, I also travel, so, sometimes people fly me out to their town and I do personal healings for people too. Some of my work comes from a place of distractions or exorcisms as well. It's a whole nother subject. But there's a lot of different type of work that I do with people. And I teach Qigong with people. So even if, last time I did some traveling, I was in California and there was a sister who wanted me to work with her son. And so, it's a lot of different things I bring working with people. I show exercises that can help with their energetic field and with their energetic body, different things that are going to help you on your personal path. Because a lot of times, what I see out there is that people become codependent on people. They put people on a pedestal. They depend on people for people to be their savior. When you're here, where, in my opinion, we're all souls here and here to do our own work. And no one could do the work for you. We all have to do our own investigation, our own healing. No one's responsible for your own personal evolution, So I try to give tools to people. Before I leave, I want people to be able to have tools that they can use for their own personal evolution. So there's certain exercises that I'm gonna leave with you. But usually there's the cleansing process, definitely the combo, the snake venom, certain ethogenic medicines I work with people, different things like that. But conference, next talks, I don't know. I know there's the Women's Ethogenic Conference coming up. Support Mama Ayana in that. That's Baba Kalindi's wife. She's still doing the work with people, talking about you probably hear more stories about kind of like the one I talked about with the womb activation, from the sisters, hearing it more from the sisters and what they have to say. Sister Kai, who passed away, she was one of the people that were really spearheading that as well with the Women's Ethogenic Conference. And, the women talking about super babies, you know what I mean? How to activate certain qualities within the womb, as a woman's going through her birthing process, what kind of soul you want to call down to be born, are you going to birth a warrior, a painter, a philosopher, what have you, and how these women can actually talk to their unborn, they're unborn before before it even comes out their womb, deep things that these sisters have to share. So yeah, that's coming up. That's going to be in Detroit. Off the top of the head, I do not know the actual date for it right now. I kind of forgot, but please look on either Instagram or Facebook for Mama Ayana's information about the Women's Ethogenic Conference, and go out there and support these sisters and listen to their story, their information, their knowledge, their wisdom. Also check out Brother Mudu, Bhakti, Brother Mudu and the Tamarian Institute. Brother Mudu was in Africa doing his thing, and I know he has a lot to share with the people from his experience. And they got their lab that they brought up, and that's going on in Detroit, and ways to test the potency of certain medicines and stuff like that. So people are doing their thing. Check out Darren the LeBaron, and check out Acacia Lewis, all these great people that are coming forward and bringing new information to this movement, this level of shifting of consciousness. Okay. So that's it. Thank you all for listening, and I appreciate it. Looks like I've been on here for 2 hours. That's been a while. So, all right. Let me see how I turn this off now. And peace, and y'all take care.